feel that I'm just a little off here, we're going to just go ahead and continue on as usual. Hello there in TV land. I'd like to thank you for joining me. My name is Larry Belfield, and this is the Belfield Show, or BS for short. I would like to thank you for being here. We are in the midst of discovering the truth about the history of real estate, and we know that it comes from the greatest kings ever to have lived. The Bible is a clear, concise record of the facts of our world, the truth of our history, the greatest story ever told. We are now going through the complete Bible, and this is episode 2, the book of Judges. However brief we go, these books, I must urge you to please find a church home. Today, as we dive into the Word, we like to first start off with a prayer. For clarity, for connection. Lord, I thank you for bringing us together once and again to study your holy word. Please give us clarity, clarity of mind, clarity of heart. Give us understanding and focus as we read and try to understand your word. Today, we're studying in the book of Judges. We briefly went over the book of Judges last season. However, there is so much to go through that we can read this over and over again and come out with something new every single time. So in fact, we're going to brief over what the book is about. And then we're going to just key in on a significant story. The book of Judges begins once Joshua dies, and the children of Israel are calling to the Lord to see which one of the tribes will go up against the Canaanites, for they have finally reached the promised land that God has set out for them nearly 500 years before. Look, we start off the book with a continuation of the children of Israel's campaign to take over and usurp all of the lands that once held them in bondage and created laws against them and their children. Most think that the children had a flawless run through all these people, taking down plain after plain, city after city, becoming more and more powerful. However, this is not the case. The reign of the children of Israel comes to an abrupt end. They begin to be kind to the enemy. They start taking servants. They start taking friends. They start making deals. And they begin to actually, they act how these people act. They begin to worship their other gods. They begin to sacrifice innocents. They begin to war and fight at the drop of a hat without the consent of God. So the children of Israel go through time after time of being led into captivity. First few chapters of Joshua, the children of Israel go through several cycles of captivity and freedom and connection with God. What we learn is that there are significant... My heart just jumped out of my chest right now. Okay. What we learn is that there are significant men that stand out in the book. However, it only gives testament to how far the children of Israel have fallen away from God. I mean, just in chapter 3, they turned over into the hands of the enemy in chapter 4. And they were turned over into the hands of the enemy in chapter 6. And they began begging the Lord to free them from their captivity. Once more, after spending around 40 years under occupation, the Lord finds a man that is capable of leading his army to free the children of Israel. However, there is a man named Jephthah, under the Lord's command, defeats many enemies. However, once he wins, he begins to worship God like the Philistines, like the heathens. And he makes a vow to the Lord that he will sacrifice the first thing that comes out of his doorway when he gets home, which happened to be his beloved daughter. And he proceeded to sacrifice her, which led him into having a very rocky reign, with battles from country after country, and his reign was 6 or 7 years. The fact, it did do a lot of damage to the people, as we learned in previous lessons. He did have an issue with many other parties before all the chaos ensued. Oh no, I jumped over. Yes, he had a reign that wasn't worth mentioning much. The children of Israel didn't gain much ground, but he didn't just come and go out. Now the next man that we learn about in Judges is the story of Samson. Now, the fun fact, he did do a lot of damage to a lot of people, as we learned in previous lessons. However, he did have an issue with the Philistines and the other races around his camp. What he did was he gave them a riddle that they could not solve, and they owed him a great sum if they could not solve it. But what they did is they threatened his wife. They threatened her with death, and they threatened to burn her at the stake if she didn't try to get the answer, if she didn't successfully get the answer from Samson. She was of the same race of the people that Samson was trying to fool with his riddle. So they got her to betray Samson. And he knew immediately that this was the case, that you got to my wife, and if I hadn't told her, you would know the answer. Now, he leaves upset, and he leaves his wife, and he leaves his family for a while, and he just goes away. So when he's gone, it was interpreted that he did not want his wife anymore. So they gave his wife to his friend. So, but when he returns home, thinking that he was just ignoring his wife, and he was ignoring everybody for a while, that he knew how to make her mad, was probably the case, and he knew that he needed some time to cool off. And so I guess when he comes back, he sees his wife married, and completely married to another man. So what we thought, how this began with Samson and him, as a tit for tat thing, where he started, doing things where he went and burned up the fields for their crops. And what they did is they went back and they murdered his father, and they murdered his wife. And later on in the story, he was with another woman, and she betrayed him as well, and that's when he was ultimately captured. There is, the main theme is that the children of Israel, they kept falling away. Hey there, little buzz. They kept falling away from the Lord, going after other people's ways of life. And the Lord set them up in a way with Moses, with priests and pastors, with the consecration, with the temple, with your eyes set on Canaan, so that we can have some home to create a place for God, for us. However, with the conscious warring, with the constant warring and plundering and fighting and meleeing, all these new people is too much for the Israelites. It's too much, and they begin to take on and befriend and follow after all of these people. Where most people thought that the children of Israel just went on and, they went on a giant rampage and they murdered and they killed without, recognition. But this is totally false. The actual word, the problem is they're too friendly. They see a good deal and they want to take advantage, They see a good time and they see a half-built church and they say, let's just finish this out and then we can dedicate it to our Lord. It'd be easier just to finish this one and then change it, to see, but the Lord doesn't want some things like that. You see how little things can become big issues? Maybe he didn't want their statues or their pictures, or he didn't want anything of theirs to remind you what was taking place. To have their statues in your home and to have their prayers, sounds okay. Sounds good, right? Like in chapter 10, the Israelites are under the jurisdiction of the Moabites. They call to the Lord one more time together to plead to him to be free. But this time the Lord doesn't answer. He tells them to go after the gods that they have been going after already. Not so many words. But at this time the children of Israel turned back. Except he didn't free them. But they turned to the Lord anyway. Eventually they get their freedom and they begin to fight again and take control of the world and their lives. However, our land, our place, our people is still plagued with these other peoples that do sacrificing and worship other gods. And there's a lot of hanky-panky going on. Now, you heard the story of Samson and Jephthah. This is the third story in the book of Judges. I have to caution you. This is a story that is not for the faint of heart. Out of all the turmoil and all the disapproval from God, we come to a point where the children of Israel are so far spread away that it would take a miracle to bring them together. Now this book is ripe with men mistreating women. Reading this book over and over again, I realize that men usually disregard women, use them for their sole purpose, create avenues where they can possess women, own women, control women. In this book, there are women that suffer pretty gruesome fates due to the hands of men. You have a daughter of the captain who sacrifices his daughter for winning a battle. And you have the wife of Samson who was murdered because of his actions. And now this story resembles the one that you've heard already. There is the Levite, a man sojourning. There was a Levite man sojourning on the side of Mount Ephraim, who took him a concubine from Bethlehem, Judah. His wife took leave of him which means she left him for a few months to go see her father. After some time, he went to see her at her father's home to bring her back home. After traveling, he met her father, and he told him to come on in and eat, for the father was excited to see him. After a day, the father said, "Stay a couple more days." And he did. And after a couple more days, the father said, "You know what? Stay a couple more days. Eat and drink and be with us and be merry." And he did. And on the last day, the father said, "Hey, stay a little longer. Stay. Why leave right now? It's about to be dark. Stay for this day, because the day is getting later." And the father said, "Just stay one more night, and then you can leave early in the morning." And the man said, "No, instead we're going to leave tonight. And we're going to go ahead on back home." So that night, he and his wife and one of his servants were on the way home. And his servant asked to stop in one of the cities where he was from. However, the Levite denied the request and told his servant that "We will be going to one of the cities where my people live," the Jewish people. If so, it was decided that they would keep walking further into the night and make it to the city of his people. They made it to the city of Gibeon. However, when they arrived at Gibeon, there was no one that could take them in. It was getting late, and it was almost dark. And just before it got night, a man approached, because he was working late in his vineyard. And he saw the Levite, and he asked him, what was he doing? And he told him what he was doing there. Well, there was no one to take us in, and we're sitting outside. We have enough food and water, but we don't have anywhere to go tonight. So the man was kind enough and said, "You can come over to my house. Just don't sleep in the street." And the Levite agreed. So he and his wife and the servant went to the man's house. However, later that evening, a group of men showed up at the house, banging the door down, just like in Sodom and Gomorrah, wishing to know the people that have gotten to this city. And by know them, we don't mean they wanted to get to know them and have a chat, but for in the Bible, this means that they really wanted to have sex with them. So the man of the house offered his daughter, and he said, "Please don't take this man's wife, because they are not from here. You can take my daughter, or you can take my wife." But the men refused. Not like in Sodom and Gomorrah, where they all were stricken with blindness immediately. These men forcibly made their way into this house and took the Levite's wife. And they ravaged her all night long. So much so that she could barely make it home. In fact, when the morning came, she was walking home, so tired and so torn that she made it to the door and fell down. She put her hands on the mantle, on the step of the door. But when the morning came, and who knows how long she was out there, the Levite, went to leave and walk out and saw his wife on the floor at the edge of the door. And he went to pick her up, and he called to her. She was dead. Judges 19 and 25. But the men would not hearken to him. So the man took his concubine and brought her forth unto them. And they knew her, and abused her all the night until the morning. And when the day began to spring, they let her go, All now, they let her go now. This Levite did something that was almost unimaginable with his pain. He was going through so much pain that he ever felt in his whole life. What he decided to do was cut his wife into 12 pieces. And he sent one piece to each of the tribes of Israel. And after seeing the evil done to this woman, after hearing how the Levite had suffered and what these men did, all of the tribes of Israel came out and stood as one man. Judges 20:1. Then all the children of Israel went out, and the congregation was gathered together as one man, from Dan even to Beersheba, with the land of Gilead, unto the Lord Mizpeh. Judges 20:5. And the men of you gave rose against me, and beset the house round about upon me by night, and thought to have slain me, and my concubine have they forced. She is dead. Have they forced that she is dead. Judges 20:6. And took my concubine, and cut her into pieces, and sent her throughout the country of the inheritance of Israel, for they have committed lewdness and folly in Israel. For many years, I never really understood all the turmoil that goes down in this book. However, reading it through over my lifetime, realizing the stories coincide by the women's persecution, these men are strong warriors, and they have the ability to bring thousands of men under their rule, with their word, with their power. Lead men. Men will follow these men. However, through their actions, through their deeds, through their words, through some mishap, their actions got the ones that they loved the most killed. Most people think that the Bible has morals to the story, or it has happy endings, or it has resolution. But that's not this. This is actual recorded history. These events took place, and they don't have happy endings. They don't have joy or peace loaded in them. These are actual events. This is what people actually did. They suffered sinful acts, wicked acts. However, as we see, when these men go after other women or don't understand the true cause of God to protect our women, I went to work to protect our women, not for you to sacrifice them. And now we have this Levite whose devout love to his wife brings the entire nation of Israel together. There's nothing more powerful than love. There's nothing more powerful than love for your family and the ones you care about. The message, we're losing something precious. Be it our ideas, our vision, our mind, our hearts, our beliefs, our religion. It may be that one precious thing that we must hold on to. It's the one precious thing that we're losing. These men lost the closest woman in their lives. To lose something so precious, to go to such length to give them the respect they deserve, You see, this is not so different from the children of Israel falling away from God himself. What would God do to lose something so precious? What length would he go? How far would he go? What would he do to see his most precious love being treated this way? Dismembered, burned alive, sacrificed, raped, abused, until death. This book is ingrained with men that have paid the ultimate price. These men are significant in our history because of what they have gone through and how they have brought us together. We need to learn every lesson that this book has to offer. It's for your life, my brother, to show you that people can go down folly. It can happen, but not for you. See, you can stay near the Lord. I'm not saying that none of this will happen to you, but you'll get through this a lot better, a lot stronger with Him than without. Lord, I would like to thank you for giving us this time to research and understand your word. Together, Lord, I thank you for bringing us together for you. I thank you for collecting us, collecting our hearts in recognition of your word, your wisdom, your love, your grace, your power. Thank you, Lord, for keeping us, for blessing us. And we ask that you keep guiding us and bringing us into you. Your will be done. Thank you for joining me today on the Belfield Show. I would like you to like, subscribe, share, comment, and post all that you see here today. Thank you for joining me on the BS. I hope that you guys have a good night. I would like you to read the book of Judges for yourself. You guys have a blessed evening.